Genesis 39, verse 17. And she spake unto him according to these words, saying, Hebrew servant, which thou hast brought unto us, came in unto me to mock me. We've been talking about words and how important words are. We talked about how God, that there's no word that is describable. He's indescribable. What a great God that we serve. Then we talked about how we ought to watch what we say, watch our words. And then I want to talk to you about this thought this morning about keeping our word. Nobody hardly keeps their word anymore. Used to. Back in the day, I used to hear stories of people when they made a deal, they just shook hands. But today, we've gone so far from that. Matter of fact, I had an appointment this week at 3:30 one day, and I told him, I said, look, if something comes up, I may not be able to make it. And I said it was on a kiosk is what they had me, like one of those where you jump ahead of everybody. I said if I don't make it, I'll call you and let you know I'm not coming. And they said you don't have to worry about that because if you don't show up, it'll automatically take you out of the system. And I said, oh, okay. And I got to thinking about it. The reason why it automatically takes you out of the system because people don't keep their word. They sign up for an appointment and then they just don't show up. If I have a haircut appointment or a doctor's appointment or something, and I can't come, I'm gonna call them. And that's why a lot of times they charge because people just don't show up and they waste their time. So if you don't go to your appointment, they'll charge you. And so we ought to keep our word. When I go to Little Caesars, I love I love pizza. If I go down to Little Caesars, they say hot and ready, and I go in there and I say, "Can I get two large pepperoni pizzas?" And they say, "Sir, you're gonna have to wait 5 minutes." I'll tell them, I say, "I thought the sign said hot and ready. This is false advertisement." And I'm just joking with them. Then I'll give them a track or something, just lighten the mood. Um, but still, it's true. They say hot and ready. It ought to be hot and ready. It's false advertisement. And so you ought to keep your word. No matter what the cost is, keep your word. I like when Peter was out fishing and they caught nothing, and Jesus said, Peter, let down your nets. He said, we've went fishing all night, Lord. All night we've been out here fishing and we've caught nothing. But he said, at thy word. And he took God at his word. And so God keeps his word. Jesus keeps his word. Jesus is God. He's the Savior. He died for mankind, and he paid for our sin debt. He said in Genesis 3:15 that there would be a Savior to come and die for us, and he kept his word. The Savior came and died for us. If you have any kind of problems or trials or storms, he said, I'll never leave you nor forsake you. He keeps his word. But a lot of times we don't keep our word. Uh, I love the story. I was reading about a man. His name's Michael Hyatt. He's a chairman of Thomas Nelson. Now, it said a former executive of their company made a commitment to a third party via email. But it was obvious that this man didn't do his research and he didn't prepare for the cost of what he was promising the people. He said it was over six figures is what he was promising for this customer. And this is what it said in the email that Michael Hyatt wrote. He said, he said the executive is no longer at the company. He obviously didn't count the cost. He wasn't authorized to make this commitment. This project is already underwater. The amount is not in our budget. I wasn't even aware of the commitment. And it says our CFO wasn't aware of the commitment. And it says this, though, at the end of the email. However, after a few moments, I remembered that our first core value at Thomas Nelson is honoring God. We amplify this by saying that we honor God in everything we do. We then go on to describe the behaviors that express this value. The fourth item on the list is this: we honor our commitments, even when it is difficult, expensive, or inconvenient. And that's what we need today. We need people that will keep their word. That is what is missing today with not only Christians, lost people used to keep their word. And when a man said something, they shook hands on it. It was a done deal. There was no contracts, nothing. You buy a house, let's shake on it, done deal. But now today, we you can get stuff in writing and signed, and all you gotta do is go find you a lawyer, and you can get out of a contract. We are so far away from keeping our word, but we need to keep our word.